Jack of all trades, master of none, still better than only a master of one. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard this proverb, and I think it's famous for a reason. It represents a debate that has raged for centuries all over the world by countless people. Is it better to be good at just one thing, great even, or is it better to be pretty good at many things? Now, such a general question, I'm honestly not able to answer. But, luckily, I don't have to. I'm here to talk about leadership today. So, we can look at the question in the eyes of leadership. And before I change my question, I think it's necessary to point out one thing. Leadership's always focused on production. A little group leader in a school project chooses how his group produces their project. A CEO at a company chooses what his company produces and sells to the world. And world leaders must be focused on what their countries produce and sell and give to the rest of the world. So I think a better answer or a better question to ask is it better to focus on producing just one thing, or is it better to diversify your options? And while you all may have your own opinions on the matter, I believe I have found the correct answer. You see, when it comes to deciding on how to break up production, I believe it's best to choose one thing and focus on it. But don't completely commit. You only need to be better, or just a tiny bit better than everyone else in your field at this one thing. And then you should use your resources to diversify. You see, if you're only focused on one thing, and you put all of your eggs in one basket, and when the basket shakes, all your eggs fall out, and you're in trouble. However, if you focus too much on stability, then you're never going to get anywhere. You'll always just be you'll always be obscurity in the background. If you don't believe me, I think it's best to look at 1920s Prohibition era Chicago. You see, this was a time marked by production. Anyone who wanted to get ahead and make a lot of money was focused on producing alcohol and selling it to the people of Chicago when it was illegal. And as such, there are many different leadership styles that came from this time in many different ways. People tried to do this. However, one name during this time stands above everyone else. That is the name of Al Capone. And you see, he rose above everyone else and is prominent today, I believe, because he followed this model of focusing on one thing, but also diversifying. Specifically, I'd like to look at how he acted when he first took control of his gang, right when the North Side, South Side Wars started. But before we get into how Al Capone actually fought the war, I think it's necessary to see how he prepared. You see, wars are just as much about the preparation as they are about the actual fighting. And as such, I think we should look at how Al set up his gang. You see, Al used this focused, diversified model to great effect. During this time, many gangs chose to focus only on one thing. You had the gambling gangs, focused only on gambling. You had the racketeering gangs. You had the vice gangs, so on and so forth. But they never really got ahead. You also had other gangs who tried to diversify, but you don't really hear about them now. See, Al was unique in that he diversified. He dipped his toes into everything. But he also realized that alcohol was the main mover, so he focused mainly on alcohol production. He's also unique in his diversity in that he was willing to go into any industry. During this time, many other gangs, Italian gangs who were focused on bootlegging, decided that they did not want to deal with vice, as they were morally objected to it. Al, however, had no such objections, and he was fine in making money from it. As such, because he was diversified in so many different ways of getting money, but also he received immense profits from alcohol, he was set up, his game was in a great position when the fight fighting actually started, as he had money and resources to fight. So, let's look at how he actually fought the war. During this time, he used the focus and diversify model to great effect. Al's no idiot. He still focused on production while fighting. He didn't just switch over to fighting. However, he always looked to acquire and to gain new allies, new land, all that, and diversify. See, an example of him allying with other gangs is one time in Chicago Heights, an area called Chicago Heights, there was this faction of people called the Roberto faction. They were not being treated well by the gang they were serving under, so they sought out Al Capone, and he worked with them to get rid of their old gang leaders, and then soon Al had control over the Chicago Heights. Al also used this focused diversify model by capitalizing on other gangs' mistakes. See, he would wait. He would focus on his production, and then once he saw an opportunity, that's when he'd take it. For example, a different rival gang was harassing prominent Italian citizens and demanding money from them by threatening them. See, but because they were prominent Italian citizens, they were just as powerful as this gang, and soon there was a gunman going after them for threatening their lives, pretty much. Al saw this gunman, and soon he was working for Al Capone, and was one of his best men. And Al can only keep these allies because of the focus and the power that he gained from his alcohol. But these people could not backstab him because he was just that powerful, and they would get hurt if they tried to. The final time he diversified in this time was when he moved his operations outside the city. You see, Al knew that all this violence was going to cause the city to crack down. People were going to cry out of all this murder and stuff going on. So he moved his operations outside the city, and then once all the fighting was over, the city came and cracked down on all the inner city operations, but he was fine to still focus on producing alcohol with the stuff outside the city. So after hearing all this, I'm pretty sure it's undeniable that the focused diversified method is effective. He did better than all the gangs who specialized in one area, but he also did better than the ones who tried to specialize a little, but could never really get ahead. While Al Capone was not the most moral person, and I'm not encouraging you to go into organized crime, I think his leadership methods are very well worth looking into. This focused, diversified method is I believe, the right way to split up production when there's competition, and there's always competition. Thank you.